Sarah Martinez walked into the crowded coffee shop on Fifth Street, her heart beating faster than usual. The morning sun streamed through the large windows, casting long shadows across the wooden floors. She pulled her cardigan closer around her shoulders, making sure the sleeves covered her arms completely. After 3 months of working at Henderson & Associates law firm, she still felt like the new girl trying to prove herself. The coffee shop buzzed with the usual morning crowd. Business people in expensive suits checked their phones while waiting in line. College students sat hunched over laptops, empty coffee cups scattered around their tables. Sarah recognized several faces from her office building. This place had become her daily refuge. Many had quit within their first 6 months, unable to handle the pressure and demanding workload. Sarah pulled out her tablet and began reviewing case files for the morning meeting. The Johnson custody case required careful attention to detail. She had spent the previous evening researching precedents and preparing arguments. The work was demanding, but she loved the challenge of helping families navigate difficult situations. Her own childhood had taught her the importance of fighting for what was right. As she concentrated on her notes, she became aware of voices at the table behind her. 3 women in designer clothes. Probably has some weird tattoos or scars she's embarrassed about. Sarah's hand instinctively moved to her left arm, where beneath the fabric of her cardigan lay a small tattoo that meant everything to her. The mark was simple but significant, a memorial tribute to her younger brother Danny, who had died serving in Afghanistan 2 years ago. The tattoo contained his military service dates and a small eagle, symbols that honored his sacrifice and kept his memory close to her heart. The conversation behind her continued, growing more cruel with each exchange. I heard she went to law school on some kind of charity scholarship. Probably one of those people who doesn't really belong in our kind of environment. The third woman joined in with even more vicious comments. Some people just don't understand professional dress codes. Those long sleeves in summer make her look completely out of place. She should learn to fit in better if she wants to succeed here. Sarah's tablet screen blurred as tears threatened to form in her eyes. She had chosen to cover her tattoo, not out of shame, but out of respect for professional environments and her desire to be judged on her work rather than assumptions about her appearance. The memorial tattoo was deeply personal, representing the most painful loss of her life and her brother's ultimate sacrifice for his country. She gathered her belongings quickly, no longer able to concentrate on her case files. The cruel words had shattered her peaceful morning. She pushed through the glass doors and stepped onto the busy sidewalk, where the noise of traffic and pedestrians provided some relief from the hurtful conversation she had overheard. The short walk to her office building usually took 5 minutes, but Today, Sarah found herself walking slower than usual. The women's words echoed in her mind, mixing with her own doubts about whether she truly belonged in the prestigious law firm. She had fought so hard to earn her position, but moments like this made her question whether she would ever feel completely accepted in this professional world. Her brother Danny had always encouraged her to pursue her dreams, even when they seemed. She wondered how many of them had ever felt like outsiders in their own lives, working twice as hard to prove they deserved opportunities that others took for granted. The tattoo on her arm felt warm beneath her sleeve, as if Danny's memory was reminding her of his strength and courage. He had faced much greater challenges than office gossip and social judgment. He had served his country with honor, making the ultimate sacrifice to protect others. His example had always inspired her to persevere through difficult times. As the light changed and she continued walking toward her office building, Sarah made a silent promise to herself. She would not let the cruel words of others diminish her determination or make her ashamed. The choice was hers to make, and no amount of gossip or judgment would force her to reveal something so personal before she was ready. She reached the entrance to the Henderson and Associates building and took a deep breath before walking through the revolving doors. Whatever challenges the day would bring, she was determined to face them with the same courage and integrity that Danny had shown throughout his military service. His memory would continue to guide her through both the victories and struggles that lay ahead. The law firm's reception area gleamed with polished marble floors and expensive furniture that spoke of success and tradition. Sarah's heels clicked softly as she walked past the front desk, nodding to Margaret, the receptionist who always. The morning's encounter at the coffee shop still stung, but she was determined not to let it affect her professional performance. At 9:30, Mr. Henderson called a meeting for all junior attorneys. The conference room filled with her colleagues, most of whom had attended expensive private schools and came from families with long legal traditions. Sarah often felt like she was swimming upstream in this environment, but her work quality had earned grudging respect from most of her peers. During the meeting, Mr. Henderson assigned new cases and reviewed ongoing projects. Sarah presented her research on the Johnson custody case, outlining the legal precedents she had discovered. It's a complex corporate merger that requires someone with your analytical skills. Sarah felt a surge of pride and gratitude. The Morrison case was high profile and would provide excellent experience for her career development. As the meeting ended, several colleagues congratulated her on the assignment, recognizing it as a significant vote of confidence from the senior partners. However, not everyone shared in celebrating her success. As Sarah gathered her notes, and prepared to leave the conference room, she overheard familiar voices near the coffee station in the corner. The same three women from the coffee shop worked in. Sometimes merit takes a back seat to checking boxes. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she organized her papers. She had earned every opportunity through hard work and excellent performance. But these women seemed determined to diminish her achievements by suggesting they were based on anything other than her abilities. The implication that her success was somehow undeserved cut deeply. The third woman glanced around to make sure no senior partners were listening before adding, "I heard she grew up in some rough neighborhood and got into law school through special programs. No wonder she always looks so uncomfortable at office social events. She just doesn't fit in with our usual crowd." Sarah felt her face flush with anger. He had been stationed overseas at the time, and she had called him with the good news during one of his rare moments of free time. His voice had been filled with excitement and pride as he told his fellow soldiers that his sister was going to be a lawyer. "You're going to help so many people," he had said during that conversation. "Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong there. You're in it fair and square, and you're going to be amazing." As Sarah left the conference room and walked back to her office, she carried Danny's words with her like a protective shield. The cruel comments from her colleagues hurt, but she spent hours reviewing contracts, financial statements, and regulatory requirements, making detailed notes and identifying potential issues that could complicate the transaction. During lunch break, Sarah usually ate at her desk while continuing to work, but today she decided to take a walk around the building to clear her head. The fresh air and change of scenery helped her process the morning's events and refocus on her professional goals. She refused to let workplace gossip derail her concentration or undermine her confidence. When she returned to her office, there was a message from Mrs. Johnson, the client in the custody case. The woman sounded distressed and asked if Sarah could meet with her that afternoon to discuss. The case had personal resonance for Sarah, who remembered her own mother's struggles as a single parent. "I received papers from my ex-husband's lawyer this morning," Mrs. Johnson explained, her voice shaking with emotion. "They're claiming I'm an unfit mother because I work two jobs to support my children. They're saying the kids need stability that only their father can provide, even though he barely sees them now." Sarah reviewed the new legal documents carefully, noting the weak arguments and questionable tactics being used by the opposing counsel. The claims were clearly designed to intimidate Mrs. Johnson into accepting an unfavorable settlement rather than fighting for her rights in court. This type of legal bullying made Sarah's blood boil. "These arguments have no merit," This was why she had chosen to become a lawyer, to stand up for people who were being unfairly treated by those with more power or resources. The meeting with Mrs. Johnson lasted until almost 5 o'clock, and Sarah spent another hour updating the case files and preparing responses to the new legal challenges. By the time she gathered her belongings to leave for the day, most of the office had emptied out. The building felt quiet and peaceful after the stress and drama of the morning. As she waited for the elevator, Sarah reflected on the contrast between the shallow concerns of her gossiping colleagues and the real challenges faced by clients like Mrs. Johnson. The memorial tattoo on her arm. But she would face them all with the courage and integrity that Danny had taught her through his example of service and sacrifice. 3 weeks passed with Sarah throwing herself completely into her work. The Morrison case had grown more complex, requiring late nights and weekend research sessions. She had discovered several regulatory issues that could have derailed the merger if left unaddressed, earning praise from the senior partners and grudging respect from some of her colleagues. However, the whispered comments and sideways glances continued whenever she walked through the office hallways. The summer heat had intensified. On a particularly sweltering Thursday morning, the law firm hosted a breakfast meeting with potential new clients, a group of military veterans seeking legal representation for various issues, including disability claims and employment discrimination. Mr. Henderson had specifically requested Sarah's participation, knowing her thorough research skills and attention to detail would be valuable for these cases. The conference room filled with men and women who carried themselves with unmistakable military bearing. Despite being in civilian clothes, they maintained the straight posture and alert awareness that marked their service background. Sarah felt immediately drawn. Despite his intimidating appearance, he spoke with quiet authority and genuine concern for his fellow veterans' welfare. "We're not looking for handouts or special treatment," Commander Mitchell explained to the assembled lawyers. "These men and women serve their country with honor, and they deserve fair treatment under the law. Many are struggling with disability claims that have been unfairly denied, while others face workplace discrimination because of their military background." Sarah listened intently as each veteran shared their story. Some have been injured in combat, and her detailed knowledge of federal regulations and veterans' rights impressed him, and they engaged in a lengthy discussion about legal strategies and precedents that could help his fellow veterans. "You seem to understand these issues better than most lawyers I've met," Commander Mitchell observed. "Do you have military experience in your family?" Sarah hesitated for a moment, aware that several of her colleagues were within earshot, and might overhear her response. "My younger brother served in Afghanistan," she said quietly. "He was very dedicated to his service and his fellow soldiers." "What unit was he with?" Commander Mitchell asked with genuine interest. "The 82nd Airborne Division," Sarah replied, feeling both pride and pain as she spoke Danny's unit. Very proud. The conversation was interrupted when Mr. Henderson called everyone back to the conference table to continue the formal presentations. Sarah returned to her seat, but she noticed that Commander Mitchell's demeanor toward her had shifted to one of increased respect and attention. Throughout the remainder of the meeting, he directed several questions specifically to her, clearly valuing her input and legal expertise. As the meeting concluded and the veterans prepared to leave, several of them stopped to thank Sarah personally for her thoughtful questions and suggestions. Their gratitude felt different from the polite acknowledgments she usually received from clients. Their stories are compelling, and their service deserves recognition and proper legal support. As Commander Mitchell turned to leave, one of the gossiping women from accounting walked past the conference room doorway. She glanced inside and saw Sarah talking with the imposing military commander, her expression showing surprise that someone she viewed as socially awkward could command such respectful attention from a person of obvious authority and distinction. After the veterans left, Mr. Henderson gathered the legal team to discuss case assignments. That's a significant vote of confidence from someone with his background and experience. Sarah felt a surge of professional satisfaction, knowing that her hard work and expertise had been recognized by both her boss and the military clients. The assignment would be challenging, but meaningful, giving her the opportunity to help veterans navigate complex legal systems while honoring Danny's memory through service to others who had worn the uniform. However, her moment of triumph was overshadowed when she overheard the familiar voices of her office tormentors as the meeting dispersed. They were standing near the coffee station. Their conversation carried. I bet if we looked into it, we'd find out the truth is much different from whatever sob story she told them. The third woman's voice carried the cruelest edge. Maybe that's what she's hiding under those long sleeves. Probably some fake military tattoo to make herself look more connected to their world than she really is. Some people will do anything to get ahead. Sarah felt as if she had been slapped across the face. The suggestion that she would lie about Danny's service or fake a military connection was the most hurtful accusation she had ever heard. Her brother's sacrifice was sacred to her, and the idea that anyone would For the first time since starting work at Henderson Associates, Sarah seriously considered whether she could continue working in an environment where her character was constantly questioned and her achievements were attributed to dishonesty or manipulation. The veterans' cases offered meaningful work that aligned with her values, but the daily stress of workplace hostility was taking an emotional toll that she wasn't sure she could sustain much longer. The following Monday arrived with unseasonable heat that made the city feel like an oven. The weather forecast predicted temperature. She finally chose a lightweight cardigan over a sleeveless blouse, hoping the combination would be tolerable while still providing the coverage she felt necessary to protect Danny's memory from workplace gossip. The coffee shop was unusually crowded due to several nearby buildings having air conditioning problems. Sarah waited in line longer than usual, surrounded by overheated and irritable customers. When she finally reached her usual corner table, she was already feeling drained from the heat and the anticipation of another difficult day at the office. As she reviewed her notes for the veterans' cases, Sarah felt renewed purpose and energy. Commander Mitchell had provided additional documentation over the weekend, including Their conversation had shifted to planning a weekend social gathering that included several people from the law firm and other professional buildings in the area. "We should definitely invite the new associates from the corporate law firm," one woman said while checking her phone. "They seem like our kind of people, proper backgrounds, and good connections." "Absolutely," another agreed. "It's important to network with people who share our values and understand our social expectations. Some people just don't fit into our circles, no matter how much they try to pretend they belong." The third woman glanced meaningfully in Sarah's direction before adding, "I heard that Martinez girl is working on some military." Danny had faced much greater challenges in Afghanistan, and she would not dishonor his memory by showing weakness in response to petty workplace cruelty. The conversation continued with increasingly personal attacks on her appearance, background, and professional qualifications. Sarah felt her face burning with embarrassment and anger, but she forced herself to continue working on the veterans' cases. These men and women deserved her best efforts, regardless of the toxic environment she had to navigate to provide them with proper legal representation. At 8:15, Sarah packed up her materials and walked toward the office building. The short distance felt longer than usual. By the time she reached her office, perspiration had dampened her blouse beneath the cardigan, and she felt lightheaded from the combination of heat and stress. At 10 o'clock, Commander Mitchell arrived for a scheduled meeting to review case strategies and discuss additional veterans who needed legal representation. Sarah had prepared extensively for the meeting, organizing all the documentation and researching relevant precedents that could strengthen their arguments in court. Commander Mitchell entered the conference room with his characteristic military bearing, but Sarah noticed him glance at her with concern as she struggled with her cardigan in the warm room. The air conditioning can be unpredictable, so I like to be prepared for temperature changes. As they worked through the case files, Sarah's expertise and thorough preparation impressed Commander Mitchell once again. Her legal analysis was sharp and comprehensive, demonstrating a deep understanding of veterans' rights and federal disability law. However, he couldn't help but notice her obvious discomfort in the heat and her insistence on keeping her arms covered despite the sweltering temperature. Halfway through the meeting, Sarah excused herself to get water from the break room. As she stood at the water cooler, trying to cool down and regain her composure, she overheard the familiar voices of her tormentors talking in the She's been manipulating everyone with fake military connections. Someone should report her to Mr. Henderson for dishonesty. This could be grounds for termination. The third woman's voice carried pure venom. Maybe we should confront her directly and expose her lies. I'm tired of watching her get special treatment based on made-up stories about military sacrifice. It's an insult to real military families. Sarah felt the room spinning around her as the women's words hit like physical blows. The suggestion that Danny's sacrifice was fictional, that his death was a lie she had invented for professional gain, was so horrifically wrong that she could barely process the accusation. Her brother had died serving his country, and these women were treating his Sarah tried to compose herself, but the combination of heat, stress, and the devastating accusation she had just overheard was too much to bear. "I'm sorry, Commander Mitchell. I just need a moment to collect myself." She sat down heavily in her chair, pulling her cardigan tighter around her shoulders despite the oppressive heat. The gesture was automatic, a defensive response to protect the memorial tattoo that honored her brother's sacrifice. The idea that anyone could question Danny's service or suggest that his death was fictional made her feel sick and angry in ways she had never experienced before. Commander Mitchell studied her carefully, his experienced eye noting the signs of genuine distress and the weight of keeping Danny's memory private while enduring constant attacks on her character was becoming unbearable. She had thought she could handle the workplace hostility by focusing on her work and ignoring the gossip, but the direct attack on her brother's sacrifice had crossed a line that she couldn't overlook or forgive. Sarah took several deep breaths, trying to steady her voice before speaking. "Commander Mitchell, I need to ask you something about military records and casualty reports. How difficult would it be for civilians to access information about soldiers who died in Afghanistan?" They claimed they researched casualty reports and couldn't find any record of a Martinez who died in Afghanistan. The veteran commander's face darkened with anger at the implication. Are you telling me that someone is questioning your brother's sacrifice? That they're suggesting you fabricated his death for personal gain? Yes, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. They think I'm using fake military connections to advance my career. They believe the memorial tattoo on my arm is probably fake too, just another lie to gain sympathy and professional advantages. Commander Mitchell's military bearing shifted into something harder and more protective. Ms. Martinez, I've worked with enough military families to recognize genuine grief and authentic. He was 23 years old and had been planning to propose to his girlfriend when he got home from deployment. She slowly rolled up her left sleeve, exposing the memorial tattoo for the first time since starting work at the law firm. The simple but beautiful design showed Danny's service dates, his unit designation, and a small eagle with folded wings. Beneath it, in elegant script, were the words, "Until Valhalla," a phrase common among military personnel referring to the Norse hall where warriors go after death. Commander Mitchell studied the tattoo with reverent attention. The 82nd Airborne has a proud history, and Danny was part of something much larger than himself. Before Sarah could respond, the conference room door opened, and the three gossiping women entered without knocking. They had apparently decided to confront Sarah directly about what they believed were her fabricated military connections. The lead woman walked confidently toward the table, clearly expecting to expose what she thought were lies and deception. We need to discuss some concerns about dishonest claims regarding military service, the first woman announced, her voice filled with self-righteous authority. We have reason to believe that certain people in this office have been lying about family. His movement was controlled and deliberate, and his presence seemed to fill the entire conference room. The three women suddenly realized they were facing a man whose military bearing and commanding presence made their petty office politics seem insignificant and small. "Ladies," Commander Mitchell said in a voice that carried unmistakable authority, "I believe you're referring to Staff Sergeant Daniel Martinez of the 82nd Airborne Division, who was killed in action on March 15th while serving his country in Afghanistan." The women's confident expressions began to falter as they realized they had walked into a situation they didn't understand. The imposing military commander was clearly not going to support their accusations, and his detailed knowledge of military She had never heard about Danny receiving a Bronze Star, and the specific details he was providing suggested access to military records that weren't publicly available. The commander was clearly drawing from official sources that the gossiping women had never been able to access. Ms. Martinez has been working on veterans' legal cases with exceptional skill and dedication, Commander Mitchell stated firmly. Her understanding of military culture and veterans' issues comes from genuine personal experience with military families and authentic respect for those who serve. Anyone suggesting otherwise is either misinformed or deliberately malicious. The first woman tried to maintain her accusatory stance. Martinez has every right to honor her brother's memory in whatever way she chooses, including the memorial tattoo that commemorates his service and sacrifice. Sarah watched in amazement as the three women who had tormented her for months seemed to shrink under Commander Mitchell's unwavering gaze. Their petty cruelty and office politics appeared pathetic when confronted with genuine military authority and authentic respect for sacrifice and service. I suggest you return to your duties and reflect on whether your behavior honors the professional environment that Mr. Henderson has worked to create in this firm, Commander Mitchell concluded. Military families deserve respect and support. Commander Mitchell returned to his seat and spoke gently to Sarah. I apologize for not mentioning the Bronze Star earlier. I accessed your brother's service record after our first meeting to better understand the background of the attorney who would be working on our cases. Danny's commanding officer spoke very highly of his character and dedication to his fellow soldiers. Sarah felt overwhelmed with gratitude and emotion. Thank you for defending him and for defending me. I've been struggling with how to honor his memory while dealing with people who don't understand what his sacrifice meant. Your brother would be proud of the work you're doing for veterans, Commander Mitchell assured her. You're carrying on his legacy of service in your own way,